Welcome, my fellow sports nerds, to the Borderless Sports Pod. I'm Locke.
I'm Tom. If you enjoyed this clip, check out the full length on our YouTube and Spotify.
Links are in the description. Ciao.
Divisional weekend.
Yeah, lived up to the hype, I'd say.
Lived up to the hype.
Great set of games.
Great set of games.
Nice upset in there. Crazy surprise.
Yeah.
A couple close games. And then, of course, the Bills-Ravens with plenty of controversy. Well, controversy in the Chiefs game too, but yeah.
I mean, yeah. More controversy, I would say, in the Chiefs game, to be honest.
Yes, I would say so too.
Yeah. Do you want to start there?
Yeah, let's start with that one.
Texans-Chiefs, as we hinted to. It all came down to the refs play.
It did. I mean, look, some would say it did. It's hard because the Chiefs, the narrative is that they always get these calls. So instead of this just being a one game, it's like, oh, that was a bad call. Of course it is. You know, it sort of like follows on from last year and the previous years, where it feels like Chiefs are always getting these calls, which makes it a little different. Like, you know, if you have just, for example, in the Eagles-Rams game, if the Eagles got a couple calls, it would be a very different conversation after the game. It would just be focused on that game, whereas the Chiefs narrative is focused on, feels like years of these sorts of calls. And I think every impartial observer, even Chiefs fans, will say, bad call. Mahomes is clearly trying to get it. He knows what he's doing. There was another play where he flopped, where he didn't get the call, but you remember that one where he,
when he was running out
and he did the flop.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing, and to be fair, he baited the refs. Now the problem is, he's effectively gaming the rules. And he's not just gaming the rules; he's gaming the philosophy behind the rules, which is to protect the quarterbacks and protect the big quarterbacks. Yeah. There's no bigger quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. So by him doing it, by him abusing the rule, he's essentially taking it to its ultimate conclusion, where these rules that are designed to protect the offensive players and protect the valuable assets on offense, most importantly at the top is Patrick Mahomes. By Patrick Mahomes himself being the one to abuse the rules, he's really could cause the whole house of cards to come tumbling down. Where there's the two options: either every quarterback starts to do it, because if Mahomes does it, I can do it, and two, or alternatively, the refs just stop calling this, and then you're starting to introduce the bigger hits on quarterbacks
where they can cause injury, and then
injuries, and then we go back on the roundabout, right, where we oh my god,
2 and third, what do you call it? Second string,
yeah,
second and third string quarterbacks coming in and playing these big divisional and stuff games.
Like Josh Allen this week suddenly gets whacked as he's starting to run out of bounds and out for the rest of the game, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, so it's a very interesting situation. Clearly, they were the wrong calls. I think the refs themselves will probably admit that. Did they change the game? Obviously, yes. Would the Chiefs still have won? Probably. I can't remember exactly which one, but there was one that was a third down that was on, that the Texans would have got the ball back. And if that was, if that's not called, that's a big game changer. Yeah. I think most people, though, would still believe the Chiefs would win, but it would have made it a lot closer and it would have changed how the game unfolded. I just think the refs just need to be more vigilant on terms of what the quarterbacks are doing, and just need to be more aware that what the quarterback's trying to do in terms of gaming the rules. Like if a quarterback slows down, if the quarterback is late to slide, you just got to call it cleaner, I think. Yeah. Hard to do because it's clearly in the moment discretionary. Yeah. But the NFL's at risk here of going in either direction, where every QB is flopping, trying to get calls, which is a bad look. It's a real bad look when you have a long third down, a quarterback's trying to escape, maneuver around, gets pushed slightly out of bounds, and then 15 yards completely changes the game. So yeah, I don't know. Where do you stand?
Yeah, I'm on the fence where I'm with you on this. I feel like it's hard because we're basically sitting here being like, refs just need to make the better call.
Just be better.
Just be better. But yeah, I know what you mean. I think we're going to see a lot more quarterbacks take this sort of approach. I think it's going to be a part of the game. Refs will just need to have that in the back of their mind when they're around the sideline. I feel like that's probably just the main area they need to focus on. When you've got all these rushes and they're hitting the quarterback, it can be tough whether you see helmet-to-helmet contact, because that's usually why it gets called. I feel like as long as it doesn't get out of hand, and out of hand I mean we're having 3 of these calls basically every game, I think you can live with how the rules are at the moment. Still give that protection to money makers, basically, crowd funders, audience gatherers, whatever you want to call them, like quarterbacks, people that's there to see the quarterback. That's how your offense scores points, except if you're the Eagles. Like I said, it's tough. We're basically just saying make a better call for the ref, but yeah, relating back to going back into the game, I don't think it made too much of a difference. Obviously, slightly, but Texans didn't really help themselves offensively. They had those missed 2 field goals on special teams. Stroud was still pretty mediocre. He did have some good gains on the feet on critical like third downs that he made, but just still wasn't good enough. Like they only had that 1 touchdown against the Chiefs.
Chiefs weren't that great either,
defense. So, sorry.
Chiefs weren't that great either, though. Offensively.
No.
They were
for sure.
I mean, as I said, that was kind of game how I thought it would unfold because the Chiefs would come out pretty rusty offensively. You know, everyone
After
said Mahomes would be fine.
Break.
Mahomes had thrown a pass since before Christmas. Now a lot of people say, "Oh, it's Mahomes. Who cares?" But one, Mahomes hasn't been Mahomes this year or even last year, so he's not been in like Josh Allen level. Yeah. And 2, I don't know who you are. Like that, it's going to cause your offense to sort of get the hang of things again. Obviously, Kelsey had a big game for them, typically as he does in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Spags had a great game calling on defense, which has been their biggest asset in the playoffs the last few years. Just to quickly, though, tie a bow on the QB hits. I've got to applaud the NFL and the rest for how they've been calling the hits in the pocket. I feel like it was a time either last year or early this year, I think mostly last year, where whenever a QB got hit in the pocket hard, they would throw a flag, unnecessary roughness, which is always the worst because at the end of the day, they're going for a sack. And it's difficult because if a QB escapes that hit and gets out, it's a game changer. Like the difference between a sack and a QB rolling out and making a pass or running for a first down is it's massive. Yeah. And when they would throw those flags because the defender lands on him or something, or it's just it was such a it really took the air out of the game because the sack is essentially what the defense is trying to do, and you're making their target so much harder for them to achieve.
Yeah, like what can I do to stop this guy?
Exactly, and I feel like to their credit, they haven't been doing that much anymore. Yeah. The problem becomes the problem that is now to the forefront is when the QB is running. Like when the QB becomes a runner and they're running down the sideline or they're sliding in the middle, the refs treat them different as they would a running back. Now, essentially, once you roll out of the pocket and you start running, they are a runner. They're not a quarterback anymore. They're a running back.
Yeah.
The refs, though, mentally still treat them like Patrick Mahomes, like the quarterback, which means they call it differently when they're running down the sideline and someone pushes them out.
If a linebacker comes, pushes them, and
exactly.
They do the soccer fall.
Yes, exactly. And they know they can put that fall on, and when you just got to make it look crazy, like flamboyant. Yeah. Just make it look as wild as you possibly can.
They don't see that a lot in American football. That's new to them. But where people that watch soccer, we're used to that.
Sure is. You don't want the league to become like that.
That's another factor. Like American football hasn't seen that sort of theatrical sort of falling and foul.
Well, the NRL's always been a tough game. Like the defenders they used to celebrate those big hits from Ray Lewis and such, and offensive players getting knocked around. Like they were just, the rest, that was just part of the game. Yeah. Like, this is sort of a new, post-concussion, once the post-emphasis on concussions world that we live in contact sports, where offensive players especially are getting protection from the rules and from the governing body. Yeah. And as I said, I have faith that the league and the referees will be able to deal with this, just like they've dealt with the stuff hits in the pocket. I feel like whenever they do call an unnecessary roughness, for the most part, it is correct. They still make some mistakes with those calls in the pocket, but I think they're getting a lot better, and I think they will get better at these QB running ones too. They just got to make sure they don't either, I said, overcompensate by never calling them, because you don't want to enter a world again where QBs are getting knocked out of the game in the first quarter and missing weeks. Yeah. But he said you have to still make sure you make a change, because if you don't, also don't want to live in a league where every QB and running back is flopping and getting touched, like getting pushed out the sideline and gets a 15-yard penalty, because that's just going to essentially change the game. You don't want it to become flag football. You still want it to be NFL. Yeah. So we deal with that in NRL at the moment, where it's how do you get that fine line between the aggressiveness and the brutality and the violence of a contact sport like the NRL, which is celebrated. Essentially they're the modern day gladiators. I know it's overused, but how do you get that fine line balance between not getting people concussed and CTE and having 10 years off their life and having early dementia and not being able to spend time with their kids and their grandparents, right? So it's how do you get that fine line, and it's what all contact sport leagues are dealing with at the moment, and it just requires a lot of tinkering and
Yeah.
just common sense, I think, on the part of governing
Yeah.
bodies and the officials in general. And I think
NRL's done a really good job with that because they've targeted where they've looked at where the area of where you're tackling, so obviously you can't be, head high, and the type of tackle.
and they've also just had a no, what's the word? A no, basically taken no shit. Like if you hit the head, you're gone. Like, you know what I mean? So they've sort of taken a no nonsense approach. But in saying that, the NRL's copped a lot of flack as well for how it's dealt with it. Too many sin bins, too many send-offs. And then once you set that precedent, if someone doesn't get sin bin, people criticize, why is that not? A lot of people say the game's gone soft, because you get flopping and stuff in the NRL now, right? So there's always going to be, every rule creates, everything creates an equal opposite reaction. So every time you create this rule, there are going to be side effects and flow-on effects downstream that you don't foresee that create more issues. And every league is dealing with that. So that's why I'm saying you need some common sense and some just rational thinking for when you make this rule change, right? Protect the QBs, okay, but you've got to be willing and able to deal with the many flow-on effects that come from that rule change that you don't foresee initially that could cause to be just as big a problems as the initial thing you were trying to fix.
Yeah.
So I said, I believe in the NRL. I mean, the NFL's I don't know what number you want to put on, $1 trillion+ business. They will get it right. They have to, because they have to. As I said, they've got a balance between the brutality and the violence and the historical nature of the sport versus protecting players with the new science that's coming out. And I think there's too much money on the line for them to not get it right.
For sure.
And I think this week, to tie it back into the game, if I'm Mahomes, I don't think I'm going to get many calls. If Mahomes gets a roughing the passer call this week, I'm going to be shocked. It's going to have to be obvious, right? So if I'm the Bills, I'm going to be aware of that, and I think you can get after him and maybe put a bit of extra oomph in these tackles, because I think the refs are going to be well aware of the media backlash and the fan outrage that happened as a result of last week, and they're going to be a lot more hesitant to throw those flags. In saying that, though, Josh Allen has had more roughing the passer calls than anyone in the entire year. So we're seeing both of them are historically, Mahomes is better in the playoffs at doing this, but Allen throughout the year very good at running and getting that hit out of bounds and getting that roughing the passer call. So it's unnecessary roughness call. So it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. It's going to be just an extra facet to that game, which we'll get into later. But anything else you want to say about the Texans-Chiefs game?
No, really. Well, Texans defense, they played well apart from those obvious calls, but I thought both defenses played well. Chiefs struggled a bit on the run, than what they usually do. Mixon got going a bit.
Yeah. Texans are a good team though, like that, stopping the run and running the ball.
Yeah. I just feel for Texans side, if they can just fix up their offense just a little bit, I feel like they're a team that can sort of make their next step. Yeah,
it's crazy though, because they have good weapons. QB they like. Maybe they've got to get a bit better of an offensive line. Pass defense wise, rather run
better
O-line. Maybe a better OC. I don't know who their OC is.
Sorry?
I don't know who their OC is, like offensive coordinator is.
No, I don't.
But maybe that's somewhere they can improve. But I think as well, CJ just got to get a little
full season.
I think CJ just got to get a little better too.
Yeah.
But I really like that coach. I think D'Amico Ryans is going to become a top tier coach. You saw how he got that defense ready. He gave the Chiefs a good run for their money. It's just unfortunate that 2 years in a row they've come up against the Chiefs in the divisional round.
Did he come from a defensive background?
Yeah, he was the 49ers defensive coordinator when they were dominating a few years ago.
Yeah. So
he comes from that Shanahan system, which is intense and focused and detail orientated, but also I think he has good at relating to the players too.
Seems like the team rallies around him.
He does. So I think he's a great coach, and the biggest asset for the Texans is the division they're in. There's really no competitor right now. Colts, Jags. Where's the other guy? What other teams in that division? Colts, Jags, Texans, and Titans. Yeah, Titans. Yeah. No other teams really looking dangerous at the moment. So you'd expect they'll be heavy favourites to win that division again, and to lock up a home wildcard game. And I said if they can just improve their QB play, Stroud's got to get a little better this year. He had that sophomore slump. So if he gets a little better, and I think they could make some noise, and just got to hope they avoid the Chiefs in the divisional round.
Pretty much, yeah. It's always going to be tough to try and get yourself a home divisional game with those three weapons of a team like Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens there. But
you've definitely got to come top two.
Yeah,
I mean they could do it in that division. If you win a few of those other games, you could sneak it. You could sneak a 2 seed.
Win all was it 6 games of your division? Yeah. So you win all those 6. Well, how many?
You just got to get to 12, I'd say. They had more. They had 14.
14.
But my point is, you can sneak a 2 seed maybe with 13, depending on how the year goes.
Yeah.
And 13's not out of reach for them, but they have to be a bit better offensively.
Yeah.
But considering where they were 3 years ago, you're ecstatic to be a Texans fan. You're good.
Okay.
You're still, I said, sort of the theme of the show. You're not
Yeah.
good enough yet to push through that ceiling. Like a lot of, you're sort of fighting at your weight.
Yeah.
To push up, you're gonna have to make a few tweaks, but future's bright. Like it's much prefer to be a Texans fan than a Saints fan right now. Put it that way.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Rest in peace.
I don't really have anything else to add. Like Chiefs just executed big plays. Really.
Yeah.
They were getting after Mahomes, but on certain plays they blitzed him and left their secondary in zone. Travis was open. That's kind of how they got all their big plays and their big moments done.
It's how they always do in the playoffs.
Executed. Yeah.
I watched the highlights of the 16-second comeback against the Bills, and just Kelsey, the plays he made, they're too good. Remember, so we'll see that in the Bills game this week.
I hope so.
So let's move it on. What's the next one?
Oh wow, Lions Commanders.
Yeah, this was a shocker.
You had the wrong number 1 seed upset.
I did. I'm proud to I called a number 1 seed upset. I'll take that one. Just happened to be the wrong one, but nonetheless, I was again. Commanders 2 weeks in a row have cost me serious coin.
Yeah.
Week before I was heavily on the Bucks. Commanders do it. This week I was heavily on the Lions. Not just had a few money lines with them on. I thought that's a lock. Had a few Lions minus because we liked that bet. We thought they'd be too strong. But wow. I mean, Jaden Daniels, what a season. What a game. He made that Lions defense look less than playoff ready.
Yeah.
Like they looked like a bottom division defense. I mean, that was crazy for the number 1 seed.
It's like looking at like how that defense performed against the Vikings in Week 18. It was night and day.
Well, I heard a good analysis about this, that essentially the Lions defense tried to do what they did against the Vikings, which was heavy blitz, heavy pressure.
Yeah.
And Jaden Daniels was able to deal with it. And then as a result, the Lions were basically having to adjust on the fly, change their schemes and what their plan was. And basically after that, they were chasing their tails. You could tell that Jaden Daniels threw their plans out the window. He made them have to think on the move, and the Lions lost their star corner like in the first drive. Remember that his elbow was like popped out or some shit.
Yeah,
it was disgusting. But they did not have the luxury of losing a defensive player, especially a corner like that.
Yeah.
And as a result, them having to switch it up, go less pressure. They didn't have the players to be able to cover in the back end, and you saw Daniels was just able to tear them up. Now, of course, the biggest factor of this game, probably more so than how Jaden played, was the Lions' turnovers. How they have 4 or 5 turnovers. That the interception from the Williams was just, you can't do that. Like, that's Ben Johnson trying to be way too clever. I think maybe that shows that he would already lost faith in Goff that game to not make the plays. Like if you're in that spot, you're relying on a wide receiver to make that throw. Like I just don't think that's the time or place.
And he still kind of had to rely on him because they're playing from behind, and that's why
you just had to double down on Goff.
I think he had to double down on Gibbs.
Yeah.
Like Gibbs had his way that whole game.
I heard someone say the other day, if they just ran the ball every play, they win the game.
Gibbs was looking so good. I had his over. It was done by half time.
Yeah, no, they couldn't tackle him. The Commanders' run defense was just awful, which sort of leans in a little bit to the Eagles' prediction a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Lions, they just, from that first, I think I remember texting you, after the first drive, the Lions went to like 3 and out. I said, oh no, because the way the Lions were going to win this was get a lead early.
Yeah.
They're very good offensively early, typically in these games. Goff usually gets to a hot start, and then basically get Commanders chasing their tail, be able to pressure Daniels, get out, just lean on Gibbs in the run, and that's how they win.
I didn't think they would punt the whole game, and they punted.
No, they punt the first go. Daniels goes down and scores.
Yeah.
I think the Lions then responded, but then the turnover started, and it was just that you could tell that the turnovers just snowballed, and the Commanders kept making them pay. The Lions couldn't get a stop. It was crazy to watch it unfold because it got close near halftime, right? Or around halftime. Lions brought it back. It got close.
Laporte scored just
that's
before
right.
halftime, right?
Yeah, that's right. So that it got close, but then again, the second half unfolded, and just you couldn't stop the Commanders, and then the turnovers. So it was essentially for me just Commanders' offense was what we said last week as well, that they kept extending plays. Daniels wasn't that great on third down, but was so good on fourth down. I mean, you got to give credit to what's his name, the coach.
Dan Quinn.
You've got to give credit to Dan Quinn for having the conies for going it on fourth down. I think they missed the first fourth down conversion too.
I think so, yeah.
And instead of going back to their shell, they just kept going.
Yeah.
And that was the difference. That's how the Commanders beat the Bucks the week before, by always converting those third and fourth downs. Daniels, you can just trust him in those moments to make the right throws, which is just invaluable. And then as a result, you frustrated the Lions when they got the ball. They felt they had to score, and then it forced the turnovers. Goff made some mistakes that he hasn't really made to. He has made them this year, that 5 intercept game or something, didn't he? But, typically in these big spots, he hasn't been making these the last few years. And it forced the Lions to go away from the run, which was their biggest asset, forced them to throw, and forced Ben Johnson to sort of capitulate a little bit. I think it was a poor game from him. And the Lions will be ruining that game. That's a game they should have had. A game that I think if they had over again with the hindsight of how it would unfold, I think they would adjust some things and would be able to put in a much better performance, because I don't think they showed their best. I think that the defensive injury at the beginning hurt them, but I was just shocked by how ineffective their defense was, tackling and just their ferocity. Like, I thought the reason I picked the Lions was I thought Dan Campbell would have that Lions team just seething, like looked like a bunch of guys with rabies, just ready to go out and just feast on that Commanders team. It
looked so easy for Commanders.
But Commanders were just able to bounce off tackles. I was just like, what is going on? This looked like, it was not what I was expecting from the Lions defensively. And then, of course, the turnovers. It was just a game with the defense playing that bad. You couldn't afford turnovers, and they made too many turnovers.
Yeah, they just, a lot of my reactions from this game sort of ties into like how I feel this Eagles matchup is going to go. But so I don't give a lot away. Like the Goff and Ben Johnson, that offense, like they were just trying to go basically in a shootout with Daniels, where I don't think that's the play, because you have to dominate time of possession to keep him off the field, because he is showing himself to be that good. Like, he's a difference maker, and
he's clutch.
And that's off the help with his running backs. Brian Johnson, he's so good on late downs, because it's such a manageable 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3.
Yeah, he's never in a long one.
4th and 2. Yeah. It's not such a long... The running backs give him that yard position for those late downs to convert like so easily. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about it in this, like when we break down Commanders and Eagles, but I think that's something that the Eagles are going to have to look for.
Well, if I'm the Eagles, one thing I couldn't believe what was happening is they kept allowing Daniels to roll out to his right. All you had to do was watch the Bucs game, and he nearly every single time he got pressured, rolled to the right, passed through the middle of the field, or got run for the first down. It was his most dangerous weapon. I even heard Todd Bowles in the Bucs game talk about that. I think at halftime, we've got to stop him rolling to the right. What was happening in the Lions game? He kept rolling to the right, just consistently. I'm like, man, just seal the edges. Force him to go through the middle, get a spy or someone. It was just, he's so good at moving out to his right and making the throw. And the problem is he's so good with his legs too, that as soon as that guy comes in to get to tackle him, he throws it over him. Like, he's so good at that, like Mahomes sort of, Allen, like Lamar, like the ability to run, but keep your eyes downfield and to basically toy with that defender that's spying on you or that's defending to... Are you going to come to me, or are you going to sit back? Whatever you do, I'm going to counter. And he's so good at doing that. So the Lions, I don't know what was... I like their defensive coordinator, but I don't know what was going on, why they were just... Said maybe it's just their plans were thrown out early and they just couldn't recover. Maybe they just didn't have the personnel.
You just have to be mistake-free. That's really what it came down to. Like, Commanders have been so good. No mistakes, no turnovers. As we said, Daniel's been able to extend those plays. It's working out for them.
But why did the Lions not run the ball more, though? Early downs. They should have made it...
Keep going with Gibbs. He was...
Run both times. Even if you're down and chasing. 2 runs on the first 2 downs. Maybe throw on 3rd down, run it on 4th. Like, just go...
He made me so much money in that first half.
A lot of questions. A lot of question marks on that performance from the Lions. Strategically, emotionally. It's just a sorry end for the season.
Yeah. But we had Laporte... For that touchdown, that was what a grab that was.
One out. Yeah, that was good.
That was huge.
Great catch too.
That were sort of the main mentions that we spoke about, right?
Yeah, well, the over hit easy on this one. My goodness.
Yeah, it hit just after halftime, I think.
No doubt.
Yeah. Anything else before we go into the next
let's move
one?
it on.
Yeah. Next one were Rams Eagles. The Blizzard game.
Yeah, it was crazy. It wasn't too crazy. Like, started off not...
Started was fine, and then it was like by half-time it sort of pelted down.
I only really watched the last parts of this game. I wasn't up for the early, so don't have too much to say in terms of how it unfolded. Clearly the Eagles were just... shouldn't have been as close as it was. They were, up 14 or something with 2 minutes to go or 4 minutes to go?
Yes, I want to say.
They're a big one.
it felt like the game was over after that second
Barkley
touchdown.
Yeah.
But
And then the Rams,
as we know, it came down to
Yeah.
the final drive.
Yeah, the Rams were able to take back, and they still had a chance to win that game and march down the field. You know, it's funny that Stafford doesn't sort of get the criticism on that, whereas Lamar was in the same position, even a worse position, down 8, and he effectively, I mean, we'll get into it, but he effectively got them the 8 points, whereas Stafford only needed the touchdown to win the game, and he couldn't get it. Similar conditions too. But, you know, credit to the Eagles, their running game's just unstoppable. The defense is solid. Hurts got injured. Their passing game is still, I mean, the concern. It's probably their only weakness moving forward.
Yeah.
So if you are able to stop their run, which is a lot easier said than done, you do worry, are they going to have any other juice in passing games, especially with Hurts now injured? That basically, we don't know how injured he is, but that's going to take away a lot of his running, which means that Hurts could be a non-factor. If he can't pass the ball and he can't run the ball, what's he really doing? Maybe a tush push only. And you know, they're going to be so heavily reliant on Saquon getting 130, 140 plus yards and getting touchdowns, and their defense keeping it low. The Eagles moving forward aren't going to be able to afford many turnovers. You know, I think their room for error is shrinking with the lack of passing performance and the lack of Hurts' mobility. It's going to mean that if they get down substantially in any of these games, it's going to be very difficult for them to claw back, especially because they start off so bad in the first half offensively. So, you know, I know we're not previewing the Commanders game yet, but Commanders, if they get off to a hot start, it could be a very interesting game. So, yeah, for this game, I think I like the Eagles in this. I was on the Eagles. I thought the Rams were a little overvalued. They backdoor, and depends what number you got it at, but they nearly backdoor covered. I think it was 6 they got it down to. Yeah, 6 points.
Yeah.
So the line was fluctuating between 5.5, 6.5 most of the week. Yeah. Not much to say really for me apart from that.
Nah, yeah, it was just another Saquon game, basically. Like, especially when that weather comes into factor, the run game's so valuable in those situations. And he had two 60-plus yard touchdowns. And the one thing, like, obviously he gets so much props for his speed and agility and stuff like that, but I feel like his vision is, like, so underrated. Like, on that on the second touchdown, they showed footage straight afterwards where it's locked onto Saquon and Hurts, and you can see him look at Hurts just before they run the play, and he like says something to him. So he's kind of like it felt like he saw the vision, and he's like I've got this. And so Hurts gives him the ball, breaks on the outside, beats the O-line, which he does like so effortlessly because of his speed and agility, as I said, and he's just looking like such a complete guy, and he's probably favourite to get the offensive player of the year award.
Yeah, 100% deserves it.
Definitely due.
I haven't seen a running back sort of be this dominant since Adrian Peterson, I'd say.
Yeah,
like just the fear, the expectation of him getting the 100+ yards.
Yeah.
The inability to stop him, his ability to get long, the long plays. Like I feel like he's getting a 50+ yard TD nearly in every game he plays.
Yeah.
It's something to watch, and I said they're going to need him this week. For me, I think if he goes over 150, they win. If he doesn't, they lose. I think that's how big it is. He really is. When's the last time he said that about a running back in terms of being the
AP
determiner of winning and losing? So that's in the modern age with the QBs and running backs being undervalued. We're sort of seeing the return with the Eagles team of the running back being the main driver of offensive performance, which is something out in the ordinary.
We saw who's the running back from Falcons?
Bijan Robinson?
Yeah, he tweeted, thank you, Saquon, for showing what these running backs can do.
Yeah, fair play.
Yeah.
And the biggest losers of all this are the Giants front office.
Yes.
How they still have a job, I will never know.
It's crazy, eh?
Awful.
But otherwise, from a Rams point of view, they just fell behind early, and then once that snow came in, Kyron wasn't really doing much. I think he had a fumble again, which happened the last time, and that didn't help him. So the turnover battle was won by Eagles, and it's sort of just like a trend that we've been seeing.
The defensive backs are so good.
This whole divisional week is turnovers.
To be fair to Hurts, he isn't really turning the ball over. So even though he's not getting big plays, it's not hurting them, which is ultimately it's really all you can ask for as a QB.
For sure.
Let's move it on.
Yeah, that's it. We still got one more. The Ravens-Bills.
Ravens-Bills, what a game. Sort of lived up to the hype. So I was disappointed that, just fast forward a little bit, that 2-point conversion wasn't converted. Not just for the Ravens' sake, but for the fans' sake. Like, I think it was a bit of... There was more in that game to give. That game had the potential to go just crazy. That could have been overtime.
Just below 2 minutes ago.
It was a minute 30, I think.
Yeah.
Bills had 2 timeouts. Does Allen get the field goal? Probably. But to be fair, he's had a really poor second half offensively, the Bills. They were really trying to run that clock out, playing very conservative. So it's difficult to just suddenly turn it over. But the point is, it would have been exciting. Him have to get to field goal range, kick the field goal. It would have been, dramatics. And if he doesn't, well, go to overtime, then anything can happen.
Yeah.
They weren't really able to stop the Ravens offense. So it would have been, and obviously with the rules changed in overtime, it just would have been a great spectacle. So Andrews dropping that ball didn't just rob the Ravens. I think it robbed the fans of an even better game. Like, I think that game had the potential to become an all-timer, especially if it went to overtime.
Yeah.
But in saying that, where to start with this one? I think Lamar's turnovers, I think a lot of people focused on that, right? The 2 turnovers, the interception, which was a bad interception. You watch that back, you're like...
He missed him by a lot.
He had pressure, right? He threw the ball early, trying to predict the route, and just threw it straight. Whenever you see a catch, an interception like that, where the guy is just catching it with no one around him, you're just like, wow, you can't be doing that. Considering Lamar's only thrown like 4 interceptions all year, and he hasn't thrown one like that, you start to... Was it just the moment getting to him a little bit, trying to do too much? Maybe in a regular season game, he's like, oh, it's not on, I'm not going to try it. But in this game, he was getting pressured. He wanted to try to make the play and just threw it where he shouldn't have thrown it. And then the fumble, a lot of people killing him for that. But I feel like that's just one of those hot moment things. Like, he's not trying to drop it, but it's cold. He obviously didn't get a good grip. And
massive play from the defender.
Massive play.
Huge play.
Well, you get Von Miller running down the field to the 30, and then the Bills score a touchdown off that, and that's a massive turnaround.
Oh, sorry, we're talking about Lamar's fumble.
Right. Oh, you're not talking about Andrews' one.
Sorry,
getting a bit ahead.
Sorry, yeah.
But no, the Lamar one, that's that was heavy in the first half because that was helped the Bills get the shortest field of the game. Josh Allen does Josh Allen things where he's just gets the touchdowns when he needs to, just throwing making the right play. He didn't have like an incredible game, but just
no, I didn't think so.
For Josh Allen's standard, I think it was just.
I thought it was just both defenses. Both defenses showed up. Like Bills had their impact players. Obviously, Lamar was still
had a great second half. Second half.
Lamar was still cruising. Like, even after those turnovers, they were still in. They were still in by the end. So yeah, Bills had their moments, and like Ravens defense really showed up. They made some crucial stops. They stopped the red zone, the Allen QB draw that usually works really well for them. So they had a massive stop there that kept it to a field goal and kept them in the game.
Yep, and the defenses definitely were... I think both defensive coordinators deserve some credit, especially... what's the Bills head coach? I'm so bad with names, man. It's awful.
Sean McDermott.
I think he had a good game. I think they were a little too conservative in the second half, but kind of sort of expect that. I think Lamar in the second half had an excellent game. A lot of people say he gets a fail grade because of how bad his first half was, but I think for most part he was more than competent, especially to do what he did in that end with driving down the field in the cold with all the pressure on him. Yeah. I think they should have gone to Derrick Henry more. I think they should have used Lamar's QB draws more. I don't think they drew up enough plays. A lot of design runs for I honestly think, again, for some reason, the Ravens' offense in the big games in the playoffs, their scheming or their plans don't work. I don't know whose fault it is. I don't even know if they have the same offensive coordinator from last year. I don't know if he's changed or not. But either way, last year against the Chiefs, they barely ran the ball. They just tried to throw it. This year, they started off okay, and Derrick Henry was starting to get good. He started to get 10-yard carries. He was starting to make some moves. I think he had under 20 runs. Lamar Jackson had 0 designed QB runs. Like, what are you doing? It baffles me a little bit with their play calling in these big games. And a lot of the blame falls on Lamar.
Unfortunately.
But I don't think he's getting the help he needs in the play calling. Now, the turnovers, especially the interception, is his fault. And I'm sure we're about to get into it with another player who has a lot of blame falling on his shoulders. But, yeah, I think they should have relied on Derrick Henry more. I know once you're down, you sort of want to chase it a little bit, but I think that would have opened up the passing game more. I think having Lamar run it, again, would have opened up the passing game. Again, though, in saying all that, they did enough to tie it at the end. And unfortunately, Mark Andrews just had one of the all-time blunders of a game that you will ever see.
I mean, the worst, 3 plays in a row, it felt like, that he was a part of?
He had a drop in the first half, which is a bad one, but obviously not costly. And then, you, of course, have the fumble, which was, but I think that was probably the biggest. The drop on the 2-point conversion but that fumble was, that was huge. I mean, the Ravens, you couldn't stop them offensively. You just thought they were going to go down and score there. And that's a completely different game if that doesn't happen and they score a touchdown instead. And then, of course, the drop on the 2-point. I mean, you just got to catch those.
Yeah.
Mark Andrews doesn't make many drops. It was a perfect throw. perfect play design. Everything worked well. Here we are about to get the great minute and a half, and it's just a stone cold drop. Couldn't believe it.
I wish from these games, like, we hype them up so much. I want to talk about positive things that took a team over the edge, but unfortunately at the end it's a bit of negativity on plays that weren't made that were the difference makers.
They're just such big plays. Like the fumble, that's a massive play, and the drop is just, you can't. That's the game. That's your season, you know. And even people drop the ball all the time. People make mistakes all the time. But in those moments, you're going to remember those. They're going to stick with you. I mean, poor Andrews. I mean, I'm sure he's still not recovered. I mean, I don't think he'll ever recover.
It's going to be a long off season.
Long off season for all the Ravens guys. You know, Lamar will be pinching himself. You know, Andrews, obviously, the coaching staff, the defense, everyone's just going to be ruining that game. They probably were the better team. Offensively, they were better, I'd say. Just the turnovers again. You know, the thread with all these games is can't turn the ball over. You got to take your chances when you can, and you just got to limit your errors. You know, that's why the Chiefs have been so good. They just don't turn the ball over. They don't give away stupid penalties. They basically are playing the rules rather than letting the rules play them. They're always disciplined, and that's why they keep winning these big playoff games. So I think that's essentially what these games come down to: is limit your mistakes and just have a cool head. And Ravens have suffered from that, of giving away silly penalties in big games, making turnovers, trying to do too much. Like, I think Lamar's problem is he tries too hard. Like, I think he wants to win so bad, and he wants to have a good performance so bad that he gets to these big playoff games and he thinks, okay, I need to do extra than what I've been doing. Even though he's just probably going to win the MVP, had one of the best seasons of all time. Yeah. But in his head, he thinks he needs to do more. I think someone just needs to get to him and say, Lamar, just do what you've done all year. It's more than enough.
Like, it's just some of the narrative stuff around his playoff performances, like getting to his head a little bit, and he's just getting too much in there.
Yeah.
But
I think the play caller can help him out. Give Derrick Henry the ball more. Start him off without having to do too much early. More runs. Like, get him into the game running.
I don't think it's hardball making those calls, right?
I don't know. It just seems like it's just all the. Like I said, that first half should have been majority runs, and then pass thrown in there. Yeah. And he had a great passing game apart from the interception. But I just think it would have taken the pressure off, limited the mistakes, tried to just build into the game, take more time in possession. And then come second half, if you're feeling, once the playbook's opened up a little bit and they're starting to sell out to defend the run, that's when you start lobbing over the top. Not having Zay Flowers hurt, not having that over-the-top threat.
It's still crazy. Like, likely and Bateman still performed really well.
Yeah, but I think if Flowers plays, that really would have tested that Bills defense even more. I don't know what his injury was, but he was supposed to play last week. Remember, he still didn't play. That must be a bad injury. But yeah, I feel sorry for the Ravens. But Bills, credit to them. They finally win a division game after a few years, and we're back. Bills, Chiefs, classic. Congratulations to making it to the end of the video. If I may be so bold to ask for your like and subscription to the channel, we would very much appreciate it.
Click the link on screen to check out the full app and our other segments on the channel. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching.
Namaste.